it is accurate to believe in the resurrection. Verse 5 says this, and that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Cephas is another name for Peter. This is the guy, remember, that denied Jesus. He went out and wept bitterly. And in some personal encounter after he resurrected from the dead, he went right to Peter, I think to restore him privately after what he had done. He says, he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12, talking about the disciples. And then verse 6, listen to this. Then he appeared to over 500. Let that number sink in. He appeared to over 500 brothers and sisters at one time. Most of them are still alive, Paul writes, but some have fallen asleep. He is so precise and accurate and full of integrity in what he's writing here. He says, listen, there was one time in the 40 days after Jesus rose from the dead, not only did he show himself to Paul or to Peter and to the disciples, he showed himself to over 500 people. Now, he's saying a few of them have finished their journey. They've died in Christ, but the majority of them, they're still here. He says, go ask them. You could read Romans 16 and other places where there's big lists of names. And many of those people were actually eyewitnesses of seeing Jesus. Now, if I was writing the Gospels, I would have wrote that the disciples knew all along Jesus was going to rise from the dead. But when you read the Gospels, when Jesus rose from the dead, what was the disciples' first response? No way. I saw him alive. I saw him crucified. I saw him put in a tomb, and now I see him alive, and I can't believe it because it's too good to be true, and Jesus is alive. Let me tell you, my friends, these men that wrote the Bible, the New Testament specifically, they gave their lives for what they were eyewitnesses of. That's a lot of integrity. You're not going to knowingly die for a lie. You might inadvertently say, hey, I believe something wrong. But if you're an eyewitness to something, you can't deny that. He says, you may kill me, the disciple said, but I've got to proclaim what I've seen because I couldn't even believe it on my own. And not only that, but he was proclaimed and seen and confessed, and Jesus revealed himself to over 500 people at one time. Now, how many people does it take for an eyewitness to prove something true in the court of law? 2 people is solid, right? Man, if you got 2, you got a solid account if you're in the legal field. 3, man, that's a slam dunk. If you got 4 or 5, like it's a no-brainer. The court in session is over, right? You can't even fit 500 people into most courtrooms. My friends, I want you to realize that what I'm proclaiming to you today is historically accurate evidence of the most important event in history. And so he says, he appeared to 500, over 500 brothers and sisters at one time. Most of them are still alive, but some have fallen asleep. Then he said in verse 7, then he appeared to James. I want to pause on that for just a moment because while there were a few James in scriptures, I believe this James was the one who was the half-brother of Jesus. If you understand Jesus' family, he had 4 brothers and some sisters, half-brothers that is, and half-sisters, because they didn't have the same dad, that they didn't believe in him. They actually thought he was crazy. If you ever read John chapter 7 verse 5, when Jesus was alive before he went to the cross, they thought he was crazy. But when Jesus revealed himself to his half-brother after the resurrection, James no longer thought he was crazy. James didn't even refer himself to himself when he wrote a letter as the half-brother of Jesus. I would have done that. Hey, I'm Jesus' half-brother. He didn't even do that. You know what he said? The slave. I'm the bondservant of Christ, of the Messiah. He no longer even considered him his brother. He realized in the resurrection that Jesus was everything he said he was. He appeared to James and then to all the apostles. Such great precision as Paul documents all the people that saw him. There's one more person I want to share with you today, the writer of this text, to drive home the point of eyewitnesses of the resurrection of Jesus after he raised from the dead. I actually had this question, though, I've had for years, and it really hit me fresh in a passage just a few years ago, and it's in Acts chapter 10. I always wonder, why didn't Jesus just show himself to everybody after he was raised? You know, he was publicly alive. He publicly did miracles. Thousands of people saw. He was publicly executed. Thousands of people saw him on the cross on that road right outside of Jerusalem proper. They saw him, and many people saw him put into the grave. But he showed himself, while to many, many people that would hold up in any court of law, well over 500, maybe close to 1,000 if we put all the numbers and names together. But why didn't he show himself to everybody? And my question was answered in this passage in Acts 10 when Peter is sharing the gospel to Gentiles, non-Jewish people like you and me. And Peter says this, God raised up this man on the third day and caused him to be seen, not by all the people, but by us whom God has appointed as witnesses, who ate and drank with him after he rose from the dead. He commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that he, Jesus, is the one appointed by God to be the judge of the living and the dead. All the prophets, that's all the Old Testament, testify about him that through his name, everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins. Here's the reason why Jesus didn't reveal himself to everyone publicly after the resurrection. Because the first time Jesus came, he came publicly to bring salvation. The next time Jesus reveals himself publicly, it will no longer to offer salvation. It will be to bring judgment. And so, my friends, today, thank God that Jesus didn't reveal himself publicly right after he rose from the grave, because he's patient, not wanting anyone to perish in their sins. He wants them to turn from their sin and trust in Christ.